Namaste, good evening, Susayam, good afternoon, good morning to all of you who have joined us on yet another session of the Global Festival of Yoga that is focusing on healing, well being, and wisdom. Our times are such that um, we have we need to look at the different challenges that we have faced at individual, personal, earthly levels, also environmental levels, and to see how we can discover ways by which we can address these issues and make our lives full in a way, despite the different kinds of losses that we're experiencing. So, today we have with us another very special session on Let Loss Enrich Your Life. And we are very fortunate to have in our midst Srimati Sujata Ameya ji. So, Sujata Ameya ji is going to talk to us on this very important subject. I request her to please come on screen. Sujata Ameya is a relationship therapist and a self actualization coach who enables individuals to awaken to their own truth, goodness, and beauty in relationships that seem challenging. Sujata ji is the author of When the Beloved Calls, a book of poems based on her personal experience and her creativity that I also get to see on Facebook is something that is like a daily inspiration for many who are her friends on her page. So she has an MPhil in clinical psychology from NIMHANS, or the National Institute of Mental Health and Neurosciences, and has maintained a private practice in Hyderabad in India for over 30 years. Using transpersonal and integrative therapies, Sujata ji has helped over 14,000 clients to work with conflict as a catalyst for self discovery and to journey through heartbreak as a path to self actualization. Having trained abroad in past life therapy, kinesiology, hypnotherapy, and heal your life, Sujata ji seamlessly blends modern Western psychology with ancient Eastern wisdom. She's gifted in the art of connecting dots and people and teaching complex concepts through experiential activities. We were extremely fortunate to have had her on our festival last year as well, where she had spoken on relationship, a mirror, and a path to the self. And this was on the 30th of July. It was the end of our almost the end of our festival. So we are very very happy to welcome you back, Sujata ji. And just another note is that when we have these different kinds of therapies, what Sujata ji really does is to bring in the Indic perspectives and to make the sessions very relevant to people of this culture from her own experience, personal experience, as well as from knowledge that she has got from the text, and also from the different kinds of uh, principles principles and wisdom of the yogic tradition. So, with these few words, Sujata ji, a very, very warm welcome to you again. We look forward to what promises to be a fascinating topic of Let Loss Enrich Your Life. And to our audience, you can please feel free to ask your questions in the Q&A box. And yeah, as and when they arise. So, with these few words, over to you. Namaste.
Namaste, Anuji. Namaste, Vinayji and Dattaji, and all the people who have made time on a Sunday evening to log in and listen to this talk. Thank you for the warm welcome, Anuradhaji. Yes, as you said, I was here last year too, and it's truly an honor and privilege to be connecting with all of you on this platform. And as perhaps many of you are aware, I am very acutely aware of the stark difference in the mood and ambience of last year and this year. For example, last year I felt all of us individually, globally, we were all super focused on how do we continue doing what we are doing in spite of the pandemic, like finding creative ways, finding some new ideas. But no matter what we were doing, business, enterprise, classes, meetings, workshops, We were just really focused on, can we do it in spite of it, and we'll win over it. This year, we are all slowly but surely realizing that the pandemic is not merely an irritant or an obstacle, but rather it's more like the proverbial elephant in the room that is demanding a very different kind of engagement and a very different kind of response from all of us at all levels: individual, communal, family, national, global, right? It is actually forcing us to question many, many things, question how we relate, how we understand, what is the correlation between us and, other people, the world, nature, animals, business, everything. Yeah. So at the beginning of 2021, just as we were thinking that we are back to some semblance of normalcy, um, the very virulent second wave hit us, and that literally spared no one. If you look at the first wave, it was more felt in the economic disruption, and people, of course, there were loss of lives as well. But the focus seemed to be, how do we recover our economy? What do we do? What can the nation do? Governments do? That was going on. But the second wave is actually, it's no longer just about a distant sense of some number of people dying somewhere. It is no longer like that. This has come very up close and become very personal in terms of names. So each of us, no matter who we are, irrespective of age, gender, status, geography, religion, we have been affected by loss. Loss, either directly or indirectly, loss of people, loss of things, loss of possibilities, loss of opportunities, loss of dreams, loss of destinations. It's a very inescapable experience that all of us have gone through. Individuals and communities are now in really desperate need of spaces to which will help them, um, understand and deal with this kind of an experience, this kind of an unprecedented adversarial experience. And unfortunately, especially in the urban areas, we don't have many such spaces. And therefore, it is commendable that Indica has, made this the theme of this year's Global Festival of Yoga, the theme of healing, wellness, and then wisdom, which is really very significant, because it is only through the process of trauma, healing, recovery that wisdom becomes accessible to all of us. So I'm really grateful and honored to be here as a speaker. I also want to mention another thing. This is also remarkable from the perspective that most platforms, most organizations and communities shy away from topics that are considered negative, unpleasant, unpopular. It's almost like if you speak about it, something taboo will unfold. So it takes real courage and commitment to say, no, we will address this because this is the need of the hour. And I really appreciate that. Because the rest of the world, even now, in spite of the way we've been affected, is still focused on the happiness obsession. There's how can I just somehow quickly find back my happiness, which is in one way good. I think it keeps people like us occupied and busy with their livelihoods, but it's not a very helpful or a sustainable approach to pain, loss, or adversity. So with this background, let me ease into my presentation. Give me just a moment while I share the screen. Anuji, would you confirm if you're able to see the full screen?
Yes, it's coming
Yes,
in.
yes.
Yeah, all right. So we are conditioned to think about loss as impoverishment and gain as enrichment, typically. So this title actually calls us to make a very radical paradigm shift. And of course, this paradigm shift is internal. It's an inside job, so to speak. And what I am about to share is based on a combination of inputs from my training as a clinical psychologist, my therapy practice, and my own lived experience, which has had its own share of losses of, everything, opportunities, assets, relationships, everything. Yeah. So the math of loss and gain typically goes like this. But I am proposing that can we look at loss as an opportunity also? An opportunity of what? Self discovery, personal growth, authentic relationships, creativity and innovation, and freedom and fulfillment. The journey from trauma to wholeness may seem daunting and never ending, but it actually follows some universal principles that are clearly visible in the natural world. Humans tend to interfere with it because of their own expectations and their own resistances. Trauma and healing is a vast and rich discipline of psychotherapy, and it's almost impossible to do justice to that entire field in a small talk like this, because it draws upon elements from anatomy, neurophysiology, neuropsychology, personality studies, consciousness studies, transpersonal psychology, a whole lot of fields like that. So, for the purpose of our talk, what I have done is made a humble attempt to enlist just a few key ideas, just five actually, that summarize the practical implications of the research and findings from these fields. So, I'm not going to share information or theories or any of that, but I'm going to share how all the learnings from all those fields ties in to create certain empowering ideas, which if we can understand, which will help us change our attitude, and which will also give us certain practice to implement in our daily lives. Right? Now, what has guided me to pick these points is a model that has organically evolved over the years of my own practice. I call it the elemental mapper of true principles. In my own life journey and working with clients, what I've realized is if an idea is amenable to being mapped on this elemental grid, then it tends to be universally applicable, not just to a certain kind of people or a certain locality or nation or nothing like that, but it's applicable to everyone, irrespective of place, person, and time. So I would quickly like to share what that is, how I have kind of put together, and basis that we will continue with the rest of the slides. So, okay, before that, I think let me quickly go into reviewing our own relationship with the. Just a moment, I think I'm missing a slide here. And never mind, I'll come back to that later. How do we understand adversity and inevitably the loss that comes along with any form of adversity? Adversity demands that you let go of this and figure out something else, get to that little journey is always an inbuilt part of any kind of adverse situation, right? So can we look at this in a slightly different way is my proposition. So these are the five ideas or points that I have spoken about. One, adversity comes without an appointment, but with an invitation to meet life up close. Two, death and life, loss and gain are two sides of the same coin. Three, the necessity of mourning, honoring grief by reckoning what is lost. Four, the road to recovery, the textures of sorrow and the spiral of healing. What sorrow actually looks like. Do we understand it really, and how do we relate to it? And then how do we reinvent this loss? How do we turn the adversity into an opportunity? How do we connect consciously with our own identity, values, needs, and purpose? So this is the broad focus of the talk today. I want to change the way this is sitting so that I can read the slides better. Yeah. Now, yeah, so clearly I have messed up the order of the slides. This is what I was going to talk about, the five elemental model of universal principles. So we have the five elements: earth, fire, water, air, and space. Yeah, broadly, if you look at all indigenous cultures and even so-called modern scientific research, these correspond broadly to the physical, intellectual, emotional, and the transpersonal aspect in all of us. And just like those four elements are in continuous interaction and interchange with each other, these four aspects within a human being also are not separate boxes or separate categories, but are in constant interaction with each other, creating the experience of what we call spiritual. Yeah. Now, broadly speaking, the uh, physical and emotional, earth and water, this has to do with the feminine principle. When I say feminine, I'm not talking about gender. I'm not talking about woman and man. I'm talking of what is considered feminine and masculine in terms of the archetypes. So the bottom two are related, closely related to all the things that are considered feminine, and the above two, the air and fire, they are associated more with the masculine archetype. The lower two tend to be invisible, like your emotions, how you feel, what's going on inside deeply in your heart. These tend to be very invisible, whereas what you're talking, what you're achieving, your intellectual prowess, your mathematical skills, all those things are fairly visible. This is just at the human level I'm speaking. If you expand this all the way to an archetypal level also, there is the stark difference between what is visible and what is invisible. The bottom two tend to be more associated with and more enriched by what we consider broadly the Eastern and ancient traditions, whereas the top two have been pretty much, usurped by the modern Western strides made by science and technology and all the progress that we attribute to the 21st century. Yeah. Now, no matter what the issue is, intrapsychic, interpersonal, familial, communal, or organizational, this principle of cyclicity and polarity, the left and right, the top and bottom, the white and black, and the cyclicity, the interaction between all the four elements, feeding each other, nurturing each other, and also depleting each other if the balance goes awry, is a standard universal experience. Now, most of the things that I have learned or that I practice or that come to me, I tend to apply this lens to check it out. And if it fits here, it is usually something that is very deep and very applicable and very useful for people in different, challenging situations. So with this background, let's move forward. I'm not able to see the screen here. What does adversity look like? Is that what I've written there? Yes. So when we speak about adversity, I'm going to use a very popular management term, which is VUCA, which is a short form or an acronym for volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. What this essentially means is that when we relate to the world in general, unconsciously, consciously, semi-consciously, we are actually relating to it through the paradigm of cause and effect, by and large, broadly speaking. So in a volatile world, cause and effect are rendered irrelevant due to unexpected disruptions. Yeah. And then when we consider the uncertainty aspect, the cause and effect are known but cannot be controlled. So that creates a sense of uncertainty in the world, in the situation, in the person. And when the cause and effect are complicated by multiple interconnected parts and variables, it creates a very complex situation which is difficult to analyze, understand, debrief for ourselves, for others involved in the situation. And lastly, when the cause and effect are poorly understood, many a times we don't know that we don't know something, and it creates a very foggy, dense, tenuous kind of ambiguity. Now, this leaves us with a certain state of mind, which is, one second, unstable, and it leaves you feeling out of control. It leaves you feeling overwhelmed and confused. So when we face adversity, because of these four reasons, because we don't understand the normal way of how cause and effect work in our minds and in our ecosystem, it creates the state of mind of instability, feeling out of control, feeling overwhelmed and confused. Now let's take a deeper dive at the emotional experience of adversity. This is how we can understand it from objective or a distant perspective, more from the intellect. But from an experiential, emotional perspective, what happens here is it also generates the experience or the emotion of fear. When you have so much uncertainty and you feel out of control, anger is generated. When you find things are very complex and you are feeling overwhelmed, a lot of doubt is generated, doubt about yourself, about the others. And then when things are very ambiguous, unclear, then worry also is generated. Now, this is the state in which most of us have, um, gotten in, come out, gotten in, come out several times over the last 18 to 20 months since this so-called pandemic has unleashed its dance upon us, right? So, having understood this in the background, with this in the background, let's now look at how those 5 points correlate to this and what are the different ways we can deal with it. So what I've done now going forward is briefly try to explain what each of those points mean, and then right away also give a small tool that can be applied, that can be practiced for helping us navigate these very difficult emotions and these difficult states of mind in a more empowered way. Yeah. So now let's look at the first point. Adversity comes without appointment, but with an invitation to meet life up close. A majority of us live life on autopilot mode. I'm sorry. Basis our personal background and conditioning, we barely ever question our assumptions behind what we desire, what we chase, or what we accomplish. By catapulting us into an unfamiliar terrain, adversity forces us to examine everything that we take for granted and restructure our way of living. Now, how does this actually play out in terms of how we understand this? What do we do with this information? Yeah. So first is it makes you question, who am I? And if we can simply use this sentence stem of I am and fill out a bunch of unlimited number of response statements to it. I am A, B, C, D, E, whatever is coming to your mind. As you keep writing that, it gets you in touch with how you yourself have understood yourself, who you have been, what you have becoming, what you're likely to become, how you're responding to something. The whole self-awareness around your own identity begins to be more concretely in your awareness rather than operate as an ambiguous background entity. Similarly, you can look at your own relationship with your work, with your role, with your career, with your job. So when you use the sentence stem work is and fill it up with as many different endings as you can, all the things that come out on the paper or your laptop will also give you a sense of where you are, how you've been performing, what are you wanting, what is lacking, what do you need to do. It kind of becomes more and more clear. Similarly, you do with people. This because this water section of our model has to do with relationships and family and friends and colleagues. So then you use the sentence stem of people are and fill it up with as many endings as you can. And that gives you a good sense of what's going on, where you stand vis-a-vis all your important relationships. And then we have God or world. Now, world can be cosmos, world can be universe, world can be God, higher power, energy, whatever works for you. What with that sentence stem? What do you how do you relate to that? What do you say? What is truly deeply held in your belief system? If you can complete that sentence with a many different endings, that also gives you a sense of what is going on. So in the midst of adversity, or even when there is apparently not too much adversity going on, this is a useful exercise to do, because it allows you to come face to face with or meet your own life stance very clearly, and thereby take some appropriate steps to move forward, move on, whatever it is that you need to do. Yeah. So this is about the first point. The second point: death and life, loss and gain are two sides of the same coin. Change is the only unchanging fact of life. This we all know. Adversity is basically change on a fast track. Change is a great teacher, and rapid change puts you on literally a crash course. For most of us, even planned and incremental change creates a mini VUCA. Yeah, we discussed that earlier. And this VUCA tends to be in our inner space. To deal with our unstable present and an unpredictable future, we need skills to navigate our inner world much more than the outer world. Yeah. So for this, the tool, the way or the attitude shift that is required to really internalize this truth. See, we all know this, we read this in memes, we say this out to each other, we say this to people when we go to console them if they have lost something, but I don't think we really internalize it in the way it can actually be lived on a daily basis. So one of the ways to do that is to remember that the way to not get swayed by what looks like loss, what looks like gain, because usually it also turns its face, is to receive the moment, the present moment, with wonder and letting it go with gratitude. So then, whatever is coming in front of you, whether it looks pleasant, unpleasant, frightening, not frightening, whatever it is, if we have this open attitude of, I meet this moment with wonder, with curiosity, with intrigue, with awe, and then immerse in it, be in it, take from it, learn from it, and then let it go with gratitude. Even if it feels very difficult, very painful, the gratitude is about a decision or a declaration that even through this, I will be enriched. So it's about that. It's about embodying the idea that everything comes in twos, and apparently opposite things are actually two sides of the same coin. Then we move on to the third one, which is the necessity of mourning. This is actually the core part of my presentation about how to deal with loss. This is a very important topic because it's something from which we all tend to shy away. Most of us don't know how to be with loss of this nature. A loss of a person, loss of a pet, loss of a relationship, loss of something very important in your life. And there is no way you can confront something without really mourning for what happened or what was lost. So this idea of honoring grief, it exists in our tradition, it exists in all indigenous cultures, where there are very specific ritualized activities that the person, the family, and the community goes through or conducts as a part of that process. But with modern life, with our hurried existence, we have skipped all those things as some kind of superstition or some kind of expendable nonsense, and we are really paying the price for it, because what is not mourned, you cannot move forward from it. It is as simple and clear as that. So how do we honor grief? Yeah, this I think I can skip. We must honor grief by actually reckoning meaning literally writing down what was lost. So again, I'm offering sentence stems as an activity to do. So for example, then meaning before the loss happened, I used to, and write down everything that you used to, and now I'm no longer able to because of what has happened. Write down all of that. Then I wish I had. We all live with a lot of regrets after losing something important or someone important. So list out all of that. And these are not exercises that you can do, you set aside half an hour and just it's all done. This will keep coming to you. This will come to you when you're showering, when you're driving, when you're cooking, when you're having a meeting, when you're out in the park walking the dog. They just keep coming. So as and when it comes, it's important to express it, to write it down on a paper so that it's all outside of you. It's not just circling inside your own head. Yeah. And similarly, now I wish I could, in the absence of this person. Just, really allowing yourself the opportunity, permitting yourself to feel fully the impact of the loss. There is no other way, there is no other shortcut. This is difficult, but it's mandatory. That's how it is. So this also, like I said, yes, it is not something that will happen just in one sitting. It'll keep cycling. You'll have regret, you'll have longing, you'll have pain, you'll have sorrow. It just keeps going on and on. Then the other I'm sorry, the result of this, usually, I'm sure you have experienced this in your own lives already, that what looks like loss is a disguised beginning of something new. It's a transition between ending and beginning. It works like a bridge from a very predictable past to a future that you never imagined. And it could be frightening to begin with, to look at, but typically once you ease into it, once you stop resisting it, it does look like, oh, so that was a phase, that was a necessary thing for this to happen. Yeah. So this is the part about how important it is to mourn. Now let's move on to the road to recovery. How do we recover? What happens when you do this previous activity of actually sitting down and listing your losses? Where there is loss, grief is inevitable. For someone navigating a loss, stay strong and move on, or this too shall pass, is the encouraging advice from well-wishers. This modern day motto ignores the scientifically proven fact that grief cycles over time through specific stages. And naturally, it results in renewed hope and happiness. I'm underlining and emphasizing the last statement. It naturally results in renewed hope and happiness, provided we go through it with understanding and awareness. So the way this works is, the first thing that happens when we lose something, and we are unwilling to face the sorrow and grief, we go around in this mode of, no, it's not that bad, denial, minimizing, trivializing, diminishing what has happened to ourselves and to the person who's also in pain. It's a mind's way of somehow wrapping itself around what has happened. Then comes anger. It's like, how dare this happen to me? This shouldn't have happened to me. Why did it happen to me? Why me? Why me? What did I do? I've been so good. I've done this, I've done that, I've taken care of everything. Why should this happen to me? So there's intense anger. Then there is bargaining. There is this thing of, so this bargaining is interesting. It can happen at two levels. One is, it's with yourself. That is, if I had done that, maybe this wouldn't have happened. I should have called there, then probably they would have reached sooner. Or I probably shouldn't have said that, then this wouldn't have happened. So there's this internal bargaining going on. There's also bargaining with God. Like, if you can let me, get what I lost, get back what I lost, then I will do this, I will go to this temple, or I will donate this, or I will never ever smoke, things like that. We get into this kind of a bargaining thing. And then finally, we get into what we all are very familiar with, depression. Yeah. So why have I titled this thing Textures of Sorrow? Is that all these things are disguised forms of sorrow. they have basically sorrow and grief, parading as denial, parading as anger, parading as bargaining, and parading as depression. Depression, of course, is the more intensified version of sorrow, where the physical, psychological, mental, emotional, all aspects of the person tend to be, like the word says, depressed, really down. It's And of course, like all processes, these keep cycling, and there seems to be no particular stages or timelines to this. Somebody can act like they're in denial even 6 months after something has happened, or somebody can be angry for a very long time, or somebody can get stuck in the bargaining state of mind. So these things keep cycling on and off, and only then eventually acceptance arrives. Now this model of grief processing is captured in the acronym called DABDA, that is denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. Yeah, the first letters of all the five processes, all the five textures of sorrow. And this was presented by a very famous psychologist by name Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, who is perhaps who is the pioneer in the whole work on loss, grief, trauma recovery, uh, and this underside of psychology. Um, then let's go to oh yeah, this is about how does the timeline look? How does grief actually play out over a period of time? Yeah. I'm mumbling and fumbling over the titles because the bar of the Zoom windows is covering quite a bit of my screen. So please bear with me. So if we look at the frequency, intensity, and duration of all these symptoms or all these experiences that one goes through in grief, and if we plot it alongside time, time progressing, the process actually looks like an ice cream cone. I use this example with my clients quite a lot. Notice that it is broader on one side and very narrow on the other side. And the spiraling actually is represented very well in the picture in terms of how there will be denial, there will be anger, there will be bargaining, there will be depression, there will be acceptance, and again there will be anger again. So this it is a cyclical process. It is not a linear process. So this frequency, intensity, duration starts coming down with time, provided not just because time is passing, provided the person consciously engages with it by doing the writing, doing the expressing of it, sharing, and it's staying with it, basically not turning their back and running away from it. Yeah. Then we have the spiral of healing. This is the tool. Oh yeah, this is the tool. Now, I wanted to speak a little bit about how do we handle these extremely difficult emotions, anger and fear and desperation, depression. How do we do this? So there's a very simple model. If we can just quickly follow that, each time you find yourself in the midst of that very intense emotion, it immediately brings you to presence. So we incorporate the whole body into it. Yeah. So at the physical level, you notice the sensation in different parts of the body. So right now you're feeling really, really upset, disturbed, or very worked up, or very pained, whatever you want to call it. Notice where in the body you're feeling that. Notice the sensations in the body. Then try and use your language, your understanding, your awareness to give a name to that feeling. Try and name it. Does it feel like stuckness? Does it feel like hopelessness? Does it feel like helplessness? Does it feel like loneliness? What is it? Try and give it a name. Then use your heart, use your emotions to express that particular feeling. This expression can be to yourself in writing down, artwork, whatever methodology that works for you, or to another person, a trusted friend, a colleague, a family member. And then finally, if you can do these first three steps, you will be able to decode the message from that emotion. Why I say this decode the message is typically all emotions, we call them positive and negative, but all emotions are actually like messengers coming in from your psyche, telling you what's going on there. So the good ones, the happy ones, the pleasant ones are fundamentally telling you all is well. What does it mean when we say all is well? That you are aligned with who you truly are. Your integrity is in place, it is safe, your boundaries guarded, your space is clear, and there is nothing out of balance in your being, in your entity, in your existence. But when the negative ones come, they are typically trying to tell you something is off. Like, for example, anger, annoyance, rage, whatever proportion of it you can think about. Anger is typically a message from the psyche that tells you there is some kind of disrespect or taken for granted that is going on, and you need to do something about it. It doesn't call for expressing the anger violently, but to take charge, to you know to rectify that situation where you're feeling disrespected or you're being taken for granted. Similarly, envy. Envy is a very unpleasant emotion. It can drive us if we are not conscious of it. But envy actually has to do with some part of you saying to you, you're also capable of that. Perhaps you need to put in more effort. But the way we relate to envy is it's a very bad emotion. We shouldn't have it. We should shun it. We should get rid of it. We should disown it as fast as possible. But emotions exist for a reason. One, they differentiate us from robots, which is emotions are what make us human. But two, most importantly, they are the constant internal signaling system that are telling you something is okay, something is off. Yeah. So if you do the right, noticing the sensation, naming the emotion, and expressing the feeling, if you do these three steps correctly, the message decoding actually comes as a organic result of that. Yeah. And you use the whole being, you have this embodied presence to your own experience, whatever it is that you might be going through. All right, now I think we can go to the last one, and I think we are kind of coming to the end of the hour. This has to do with how loss can be an opportunity to connect very consciously to your own identity, values, needs, and purpose. Let me skip this. So here again, these four quadrants actually correlate to these things. These are very long, detailed presentations. I've kind of taken it piecemeal here. I will not go into why they sit like that in those different quadrants, but suffice it to know that our identity, our needs, our values, and our purpose are the unconscious drivers of all our choices and all our decisions. Unconscious as long as we don't know them. But if we become aware of them, then we can consciously engage with the world through these drivers, which will drive us anyways. Yeah. So how do we do this? We work with what you're good at. What you really enjoy. By enjoy, I don't mean just a concept of pleasure, but something, the activity, the pursuit, whatever it is that gets you into that state of flow, which engrosses you completely. That is what is meant by I enjoy. And usually those are the things that you will also excel at. Of course, there are some of us, we may excel at many things and not necessarily enjoy all of them, but typically these two are correlated, and that has to do with your purpose as well. And then what is it that you give? What is it that you can offer to the world? And what is it that you will receive from the world? So as you give, so you will receive, whether it is the fulfillment of your needs or the alignment with your values or a monetary remuneration or acknowledgement, whatever it is. So these four, the I enjoy, and therefore I excel, and therefore I give freely, and therefore I receive joyfully. These four together allow you to continuously become whoever or whatever you are meant to become, whatever your potential is as a human being, your highest potential. And this, of course, also, is a cyclical process right from childhood all the way to old age. These things may keep changing. Your identity changes, your focus of your purpose changes, your needs most definitely change, your values also change. But if you can remain focused on the actionable items there, it becomes easier to uh, find out, name, and be more consciously aware of those other four drivers, which is identity, needs, purpose, and values. Yeah. I don't, yes, I think that brings me to the end of the presentation. Anuji, I'm sorry if I've crossed the time limit. I didn't realize it would take this long. There's a lot of material here, I just realized. But yes, I'm open to questions if we have any.
Yes. Thank you very much, Sujata ji. Can I ask you to kindly stop the screen sharing?
Yes, I'm just trying to find that button. There we go.
Yeah,
Yes,
beautiful.
yes,
Beautiful. So I
yes.
think the session was very fascinating in terms of the clarity of your articulation of the different relationships that of movements within our being. So
Mhm.
very, very clear articulation. I think most of us didn't even realize that an hour had almost 45 minutes had just gone by. So thank you very much for that sharing. Um, this is my personal question, but we're just still waiting for the participants to put in their question. There is one already, but I'm sure they'll flood in. But just my personal thing, I was wondering, these diagrams that you were sharing with us,
Mhm.
are these some things that you have evolved based on your experience, or are these materials that you have found from somewhere and which have further elaborations on the tools? Because I thought that the tools were extremely simple and promised to be very effective.
Yeah, these are not from any book as such, Anuradha. Like I shared at the beginning, this is something that has organically evolved, and I have come to conceptualize and articulate it with this clarity only in the last 2, 3 years. I think I used to subliminally work like that, but I wasn't aware of it. In fact, I think it was the need of one of the talks I was invited to, and I said, "Can I share what really I have learned over the years and years of working? My learning, something that I can say, okay, I understood this, and here I want to share with you." That is what forced me to do this. So, no, it's not from any book, although the tools are very, very commonly used by all psychologists, all counselors. Those are all over the place. And it's, I think, almost impossible to trace it back to who was the original person who came up with it. They're so commonly used, so popular. But the five elements grid is something that is uniquely, evolved out of my work. Yes.
Thank you very much. Is Shefali ji, who's also saying thank you for the presentation. Sujata ji, it was very insightful. I'll just start taking some questions so that we can optimize on their curiosity and their
Sure,
questions to
sure.
you.
Yes,
So
please.
we have an anonymous attendee who's saying, when you talk about the five elements and its archetypes, male and female, how do you understand the archetype of the space element? Is it female? Thank you.
Wow. I no, I don't think it is female. Okay, I'm just now talking off the top of my head. I've never pondered on this question, so thank you so much for asking that. If we have the female and male archetypes interacting in those four quadrants, and they are interacting in a infinite loop with each other, the space would be a nameless thing. I don't think it can be qualified as masculine or feminine. I think it's the interface between the masculine and feminine. That's what I think. I may be wrong. I don't know. Yeah. But thank you. It's a lovely question. I'm going to ponder over it. Yes.
Yes. It's a lovely question because, as you also answered, it has the scope to hold. It
Yeah.
could be that neutral space that holds the masculine and feminine energies
Feminine.
because it pervades everything eventually. Very interesting. Thank you very much to whoever asked that question. Another one, again by an anonymous attendees, uh, how the partner of the depressed person would handle when the depressed person is always on denial. sure of him or herself, expecting the environment and others to change?
Hmm. Okay, it's a wonderful question. There are two parts to this, though, so let me respond to it one by one. We often tend to club all kinds of difficulties or all kinds of emotional psychological behaviors under the blanket term depression. And I want to take the blame or the credit for this as a representative of this profession, clinical psychologists and psychiatrists especially, where no matter what the condition of the patient is, they will say, oh no, nothing, it's just depression. So it's just depression is a vast ocean by itself. Plus, there are many things which actually are not depression, which will cause very different kinds of issues. Okay. Now, in that vast spectrum of psychological conditions, we have some where the person is either unaware or unwilling to turn this way, to look at themselves, to see what they are doing or what they're failing to do, which is contributing to the conflict or the problem. So we can't assume that they have depression, because people who truly have depression, they are highly, you know, honest about it. They're highly willing to say, I'm really unable to do anything. Can you help me? So they're quite often open to help, open to seeking support, open to at least, talking about it to somebody. So just, you need to figure out what exactly the issue is. It may or may not be depression. So that is more a technical part of the thing. Now, coming to the other part of your question, what do you do with someone who is in denial? This sounds like a flippant or perhaps even a slightly insensitive answer, but please understand that they are doing what they're doing. What they're doing is affecting you, and you're wondering what to do about it. So now it's your issue, it's your problem. So, how do I deal with someone who denies that there is a problem, is the problem that you have to deal with? So it sounds like a wordplay, but please understand this. If you get this distinction, things become very, very clear. So let me give a practical example to illustrate this. I get calls all the time from parents who are in their late 50s, early 60s, saying, can you give me an appointment? My daughter and son-in-law are having trouble. So I asked them, how old are the daughter and son-in-law? Are they above 18? Of course, most of the time they are. So now then I say, okay, then can you have them directly reach out for the consultation if they really wish to do it? No, they will not do it. I want to discuss what to do about them. So it's, it sometimes the conversation comes to, okay, you and I will discuss, but how do we tell them what to do or what not to do? So now what does this mean? This means the problem is there. Whether those two are actually fighting, suffering, not suffering, we don't know. Maybe they are. But clearly, they're not yet ready to think about what to do about it. But the surroundings, the mother, the father, the aunt, they are affected by it. So now whose problem is it? It is the person's problem, the parent's problem. So often, gently I try to tell them that, look, this can be very distressing because you've had some hopes and dreams for a joyful life for your children and you've done your best and gotten them married, and they're having their trouble, whether it's a starting teething trouble or some incompatibility issue, we don't know. But until they recognize and are ready to deal with it, until then, it is something that's disturbing you. So we could discuss, we could speak about what is it that you can do or stop doing that will affect you so badly. Yeah, so please understand. I hope it's answered your question. Hmm?
I think if we can just take that, make it more personal in the sense that I think what the participant was also asking is that if you are involved in the case directly, so
Mhm.
if the person is living with somebody who is going through a depression and is in denial, then
Mhm.
what does the person do? Can that person reach out and help, or what would be your suggestion there, and how do you
Okay.
deal with it yourself? I imagine it can be very difficult because
Yes.
and depression is, let's say, an advanced stage, but I think at a much simpler level it starts off in a small way and then it leads to this where if you're noticing that somebody has a certain shortcoming, and that person is in denial of that, how does one even, how what is the best way to deal with something like that?
Right. So, see, if it is truly a depression and this person is in denial and you're wondering what to do, honestly, you will definitely need to meet a professional, for a formal, full-on consultation, and maybe 2, 3, 4 sessions. I don't know, because each case is very, very unique. That case is unique, and how you're relating to it and how it's affecting you is unique. So, a very unique resolution has to be discovered, has to be unearthed through a discussion, through an interaction. That part is there. But how do you, on your own deal with this? Again, I go back to what I was saying. The fact that it is distressing you now, you need to actually look at what are you dealing with, what are the options, what is possible, what is doable, what are you willing to do, what are you willing to put up with, how far does understanding go, and where does it become codependence, how far does compassion go, and where does it becomes irresponsibility towards yourself. How do you discern these distinctions? So there's a lot of complexity to that. I don't know if I can just say try this, do this. That may not be an appropriate thing to do, but this is a serious issue. If you're living with someone, especially a partner, especially a spouse, uh, who has something but is in denial, it is a huge issue. It's a huge problem, and one must take this up fully and properly with a professional, and see what is doable in that. So sometimes things like this come up, basis a discussion, right? You may have to bring in another family member to just buffer the whole stress. Sometimes you may have to hire help so that you get pockets of time away from that oppressing situation. Sometimes you may have to relocate, you may have to separate temporarily to recoup and see things from a different perspective. So each one's situation will lead to a very different idea. So I hope that
Yes,
helps.
thank you. Because the person has also just, since you had asked the question, has replied that it's not just in denial, but then if you try and help, then you're perceived as an enemy, enemy number one. So, any, I
Yes.
know you said
So
it's a case that needs very
no,
specific consultation.
no, but actually, I wanted to say this right at the beginning, but I didn't want to be assuming something. But now that he has clarified, see, this situation is typically a condition called delusional disorder, meaning this person has a untenable, unrealistic, baseless belief that nothing is wrong with me. Some people are doing something. People are either colluding with each other to put me down, to show me in a bad light, to criticize me, to see me in a very, very bad light, or in some way they are not benevolent towards me. They have some malevolence within them. That's not depression. That's exactly what I'm trying to say. And these people, it's unfortunate, these people are the last ones to seek help or agree to go see a counselor, because the stance is that I am okay. If only you can, figure it out and become better, everything would be better. What do you want me to do? So that stance is very difficult to work with. That's what I'm saying. So you need to see someone to see how it can, sometimes things are so difficult. Even psychiatrists have, sometimes encouraged family members to give them medicine without their awareness. So there are those ethical issues, there are the conscience issues. It's a complex situation. So I would really urge you to seek help, because this can be very distressing. It can cause you to lose your self-esteem and sense of well-being over a period of time, because you're at it, at a very close quarters. Yeah.
Um, Thank you for that wise, you know, suggestion there. We also have another one by Raghavanji,
Mhm.
and he says, very well explained, and I am able to understand the sequence of events. But if one is emotionally down, how will he draw about his chart and work in that cycle?
So, thank you for asking this question. As I did mention in the presentation, these tools will work at all times, whether you're low or medium or high or ecstatic, it doesn't matter. It is about really that one moment of decision or a presence that, okay, right now I'm so down. Let me meet myself in that depth. Let me find out what's happening to me. Let me see where in my body am I feeling this. Okay, what exactly am I feeling? It is that turning towards yourself. It is that seeing yourself intimately. It's literally like looking at that terrible feeling as a conversation with the beloved, literally. You know, can you bring that loving attention, curiosity, wonder, and respect to that precise terrible painful feeling? That's exactly the turnaround. If you can do that, it's hard. I know it's hard. It's hard today. It's hard tomorrow. It's hard day after. Try once, just one time in 5 days, 6 days, doesn't matter. But if you can attempt to do that consistently as a commitment to not betray what's going on within yourself, as a commitment to really look at what's going on to yourself, that will then bounce you up. That'll bring you up. That'll actually get you out of that faster than diverting your mind and doing something else, than watching TV, going on Netflix, eating, junk. All of that will actually keep you stuck there for longer times. See, all darkness is seeking light. This is my favorite quote. Okay. So, in that dark moment, it is seeking the light of your seeing, your witnessing, your being with it, your attention. If you can do that, or if you can't do that, seek a friend. It's okay. We don't have to be islands unto ourselves, and we don't have to be all powerful and all independent at all times. Seek a friend, seek a counselor, seek someone out, uh, seek a spiritual book. Sometimes that helps. Basically, mirror what is going on. Either you be the mirror or get somebody to mirror it. That's important.
And I think we can also direct our participants to look at your last year's talk, because it was on this topic
Same
of
topic.
looking at your own self as a mirror. So
Yeah.
please do visit this very rich repository that we had made in our last global festival. And again, this year we are trying to do the same. And so thank you all for your questions, because they also enrich our programs significantly with your interactions. Another question that I had here was that another anonymous attendee, he's saying that excellent presentation. While all the tools, frameworks you mentioned talk about how to navigate grief and loss, but then for natural loss like death, which we know is inevitable, how do we prepare in advance? What could be the methodology of prevention of grief or loss rather than later treating it? So prevention is better than cure. And I was also wanting to add another thing, that especially with the second wave, we had these group passing aways, like
Yeah.
parents going, the young couple suddenly going, it was a very strange kind of departures in life. So how does one how does one prepare, like he's saying, rather than treat it later?
Yeah, so you know what? This question stems in all of our minds from, please understand, the need to somehow still have control over where our emotions are going to go. Yeah. So it's good to want to have that kind of a competence and control over it. Fair enough. However, even anticipated loss by death due to, let's say, a terminal illness or some really ghastly accident, even when you know that that's going to happen, you can only know it here. By the time it comes here to your heart and to your body, it's a whole other experience of being hit, being punched directly in your stomach really hard, no matter what, no matter what. So I feel it's a greater act of strength and courage to to agree to buckle down than to say, no, 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 I'm prepared. I'm gonna walk through this strongly. Because I think in the dipping down, in the going down, in the vulnerability, you will re-emerge as something different that you didn't know you were capable of. Somebody different with something different within yourself. So my invitation to you would be, do not be afraid of the grief. Court it. Court it. It will take you to places you didn't know. It will take you to a strength that you didn't know that you had. Yeah, it's painful, but it's worth the journey. I really, really believe that, and I've lived it. That's what I'm telling you. So this whole approach of let us prepare ourselves, it you to certain extent, yes, perhaps you can, but it's still going to hit you because your emotions follow their own rhythm, their own logic. I call it dil logical. DIL logical, yeah, it's illogical. It doesn't follow any logic.
That's wonderful. I think this answer of yours also underlines your and the topic that you chose today of let loss enrich your life, because if you can grow through that, then it makes you a stronger person.
Yes.
There's another kind of loss. Sorry, yes, you were saying
Uh,
something.
yes, Anuji. Let me quickly add this one point. See, when you look at natural cycles in nature, also, when the tree loses all the leaves, all the greenery, it becomes stark, naked, just the bark. It's a huge loss. It can't say, how do I prepare so that this won't happen to me? Or how do I prepare so that I can come back quickly? It doesn't get into all that. It goes through it as, yes, this is the stage of loss. And then there is this utter, complete stillness, darkness, coldness. There's nothing happening there. It looks like a long, dark night. And then slowly spring comes. This is life. This is how it is. This is how it is. And when the bloom comes back, it's always greener, always brighter, always bigger. The trunk is bigger, the branches are bigger, the flowers are bigger. So you come back with renewed strength when you go dipping deep into those dungeons. So please don't be afraid of it, and please don't try to control it.
Sujata ji, thank you for that beautiful analogy. Um, there's another question here. So, one kind of loss that happens is, when somebody's no more.
Mhm.
But then you also have a loss of somebody who doesn't want to connect with you anymore. And that loss sometimes is much harder to deal with. So we have Chandrasekhar Shastri ji who's asking. He says that my son has stopped talking to parents, and he doesn't want any reconnection with us. Living in relationship with a classmate. How can one connect with him because he's angry with us? So what would you what would you offer as
Yeah.
counsel?
Yeah. I think this is a very extraordinary kind of pain, the pain of a parent whose child has turned away from them. It's very very painful. I understand that. I'm sure there is a context to what has happened. The why there has been the fallout and why he has withdrawn and why he's still disconnected or sulking, whatever it is. And I know it's difficult. This may sound a little esoteric and unscientific, but I really believe in this. I practice and I've helped clients work with it, and it seems to really work wonders. One practice you can do is to every morning, every night, whenever you feel like, after a quiet practice of maybe meditation, chanting, pranayam, whatever it is you do on a daily basis, after that, if you can just connect with the spirit of your son, just visualize him sitting in front of you, have him call him, invite him to be in front of you, and just let him know that whatever it is you want to let him know that you are hurting, let him know that you're sorry, let him know that you still love him, let him know that, yeah, you're just very, very pissed off with him for having done whatever he has done. Whatever it is, just say it out, speak it out, express it, and do this as often as you want to do it. Because see, physically seeing him and saying something is a different level of reality, but this is equally real in the other world, in the invisible world that I was talking about. Yeah. If you do that, what seems to happen is soul to soul, spirit to spirit, there is a communication that transcends language, transcends everything. Your son will receive this expression, this messaging, and unknown to him, beyond his own understanding or intention, he will experience a softening and a turning back towards you. And it'll all happen in an organic way. It'll happen in 2 weeks, sometimes 2 hours, sometimes 2 months. We don't know, but it will happen. Because, see, what is the issue here? The focus here is your pain. You are experiencing a loss of a conversation or a connection with a son. How he is, what he's doing, whether he's happy with this person, his partner, those are peripheral issues. The issue is you. So can you address your pain? Can you mirror it to yourself? Can you say, yes, I'm feeling this way, and talk to him? Talk to him. Write to him. You don't have to send it. You don't have to send those emails or letters, but write, express it all out, say it out. And then a space opens up within you, which will enable two things, one of two things. Either there will be this turning back and reconnection, or there will be a spiral growth upwards where you will be strangely okay holding and forgiving of him exactly as he is without needing him to change or be different. Both are good outcomes. So please try. Please try.
Wonderful. I was also
Yeah.
just thinking, yes, I was thinking that from a yogic terms, it seems to correspond to the sukshma shariras, that subtle body that which is much larger than our physical frame, and where there's a lot more connection and possibilities. And also, I guess this is not just with people who are living with, but with people who've passed away. Because
Yes.
if it is a soul to soul thing, then I guess that reconnection with the being, the
Mhm.
essential being, would be there for all times. So thank you for that beautiful reply, and very reassuring. I think all of our participants who are listening to you are feeling very deeply reassured. And I'll just take one more, and I have my personal one very quickly. I'll try and ask you these, because Siddika Smith, she is asking that in dealing with loss, deep grief, do you think that group therapy or self-help groups are also helpful, parallel to one-to-one counseling? So the role of
Yes.
the group in that, yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. 100%, no doubt about it. So one-on-one work is good because you have the intensity, privacy, and the holding space just between two people. It's a very personal and intimate space. But group therapy sometimes is way more powerful because you will see 10, 15, 20 other people sitting and saying the same thing, and then you're like, oh, I'm not alone in this. Oh, this is not as abnormal as I thought. Oh, this is not as terrible as I thought. So group therapy is extremely powerful and highly recommended. Yes, yes.
We have Chandrasekhar Shastriji, who replied because of the reply you gave regarding the sun. He said,
Mhm.
"Excellent. I'm myself ready to practice. Thanks. Myself got reassured, madam. So thank you for that."
Thank you. Thank you so
Yes, I
much.
think it's
Thank you.
yeah, because one of the goals of Indica Yoga is to connect, or to find people who are authentic, give them an immersive and transformative experience through these sessions. So extremely grateful to you for your wonderful sharings. I had a personal question here, and it was this, that because in the yoga philosophy, they talk essentially of the being, the identity being unchanging. So if one is made aware of that reality early, let's say through education, through different ways, that there is this truth in us that is really unchanging, and everything else is expected to change, because the only certainty is the uncertainty.
Yes.
Uh, it's a very different model from the VUCA model.
Yes.
The yogic framework offers an alternative paradigm to the VUCA model. So as a therapist, how would you place this paradigm,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
how real is it? Many of us know
Yes.
all this philosophy and all, but when faced with somebody, a dear one who passes away, all that philosophy falls on the face, on the
Right.
ground. So
Yeah.
how do you
Yeah.
suggest that we can deal with it?
So you've opened Pandora's box now, and I'm going to take some time to,
We'll have to call you back.
untangle all the things. Okay. So yes, Anuradha ji, that is the you know real tragedy of what's going on. Not just yoga, all our Indic schools, Advaita, Bhakti, no matter what you take, that fundamental tenet that there is this unchanging matrix over which all this changing stuff keeps happening, and if you can reset the identity with this, then this is something that you witness and don't get affected by. But that don't get affected by is where psychology comes into trouble or gets into panga, as I say, right? Because see, even if you go with the Advaita model or the yoga model, the fact is this feels somehow a lot more real than that which I've been spoken to and taught about, but I have yet to experience it, yet to experience. So I usually recommend that, you develop, cultivate, and maintain a practice that will strengthen that, the greater and greater and greater association with that unchanging identity, so that this can also function properly. And not only that, when it goes into a dysfunction, you can pull it back in a better way. That's one thing. The other thing is, it is true that, I mean, this is something I'm saying now. Um, our Indic schools assume a certain degree of development and finesse in the practitioner and the seeker, whereas the West has done the job of, also looking at the underbelly of the human existence in terms of psychology, identity, behavior, personality, and the stuff that happens here. And because of the popular culture now, over the last 100 years, 200 years, capitalistic mindsets, all of that, that mindset, that approach has taken way more precedence over all these things. These things are now considered esoteric, good to know, nice to talk about. They're not taken as real, true, and practically applicable. So I recommend a marriage of both, because as one of my favorite statements, I say this everywhere, all over the place, is that, spirituality without sufficient psychological work of cultivating a strong sense of I is dangerous. This is how all our gurus and swamis are, alive and functioning and doing whatever they are doing. When I say gurus and swamis, please don't get me wrong. I'm talking of the amount of negative press and the stories that we hear about people doing this kind of thing. Whereas, on the other hand, only overindulging in psychology without any spiritual underpinning is flimsy. It takes you nowhere, because you're going to keep running around the same drama again and again and again without that zooming out into a better perspective, into a higher perspective. So I feel we need both. We need solid psychological work that has to be done at the level of the human identity, coupled with a pursuit and all the effort to really internalize and experience the ultimate truth. Both are valid. Both are valid. Otherwise, you run the risk of being taken for a ride. Because if you try to apply spiritual principles to psychological problems, you come across at best inauthentic, at worst fool, looking like a fool. Okay, and vice versa also. If you only sit and work with psychology without any spiritual and underpinnings, it won't take you anywhere. Yeah? So I hope that answers your question.
Thank you very much for. I know it's a very much broader topic, but for
Yeah.
giving us the essence of your felt experience also. So thank you. And we have Sachin Shudraji saying thank you so much for your information. You rock. I've been loving these talks from Canada, and he's ready to get in touch. I think a lot of our participants would love to get in touch and be healed in different ways with you. So I will now make the announcements for tomorrow's programs, and then I'll come back to you for your contact details. If you have it on a slide, I'll request you to please put that on top because it's easier for the
Sure,
participants. And then we'll
sure.
request you for your thoughts that you'd like to leave our participants with. Yes. So, Kotji, could I
Certainly.
request you to please put up tomorrow's poster? So, tomorrow in the morning, we have another session on healing through daily routines and rituals. This would be brought to us by Orushika Rathji, who's an artist, an author, and an Ashtangi. So, I'm looking forward to how she's going to be able to. I mean, we all look forward to her presentation on bringing in the art dimension to our entire discourse. And then in the evening, we have with us Dr. Mala Kapadia ji, who is a professor and director of the Center for Wellbeing and Wellness at the Rashtraam School of Public Leadership, an amazing organization that is trying to draw the wisdom of ancient traditions or ancient knowledge systems and apply them to leadership in the present context. They run excellent programs that I would highly recommend you to look at. She herself is an Ayurveda professional and doctor, and last year she was on our platform also. So she's going to be talking to us on Yama and Niyama, the forgotten foundations. So thank you, Koti ji. So back to you, Sujata ji. Could I request you to kindly share your contact details?
Yes. So I may have to go. I do have to go back to my PPT to get that slide up. Yeah. So is this visible? Let me put it on full screen. Oops, I'm so sorry. Yeah. My very first slide has all the details. Is this visible? Anuji, I can't hear you because you're on mute.
Sorry, I was saying that I request all of you to take note of it and do feel free to get in touch with Sujata ji. And also, if you have friends who would be in need, especially due to the circumstances we are in today, please feel free, and I'm sure they would be uh, healed in a different manner. Yes. So, thank you very much, Sujata ji. Coming back to you for your message. Would you like to stop sharing the screen? Then it's easy.
If you don't mind, let me just go back to one other slide that
Sure.
conveys my message very simply. Yeah, so I'm
Sure.
going to just
Yes.
run through. Oh,
I would
I think
just
I
say
better
in the
close it and
meanwhile,
pull up that. Yeah.
all right. So, in the
One
meanwhile,
second.
I'd just like
Yes.
to
Yes.
inform our audience that there have been many questions, and it's not always possible. We tend to overshoot time just because we want to accommodate as many of your queries directly with the experts. So, please forgive us for any oversight of your personal queries, but please feel free to write to them and have them answered. So, we love to act as this bridge that will allow you to connect directly with some of our esteemed guests on these festivals. And the next thing is that if you've missed a session, anybody else who's missed it, please ask them to catch up with these videos on indicayoga.com, Indica Yoga YouTube channel, as well as on the Facebook page. So please feel free to, yes, reach out and stay with us because we promise to bring you some very interesting things still. Yes, Sujata ji, over to you.
Yes. So very quickly, my message would be this: as within, so without. So basically, we don't see things as they are, but we see things as we are. So the only place to do the work is within us. It's inside us. And for this, I would like to leave the audience with a small activity that they can do. When we speak about self-esteem, this is something we all can never have enough of, like good health. There's no upper limit to how good your health can be and how rocking your self-esteem can be. What is self-esteem? It's a sense of feeling whole, feeling sufficient, feeling valuable, and feeling deserving. These are very, very critical components of self-esteem. Yeah, feeling whole, feeling sufficient, not inadequate or deficient, valuable, not invaluable or cast aside, deserving, that you're worthy, and that you're good to go. So this sense to develop, you can actually do some very simple things on a daily basis. Just chant out these affirmations: I am enough, I matter, I am worthy, and I'm good. This good means wholesome, not good or bad in terms of good or evil, not like that.
Sujata ji,
I
your
am,
video's
yeah.
off. Sorry, I'm just interrupting. Your video's off.
Oh, I'm so sorry. How come?
Yeah, if you'd like to just repeat that. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So basically, to chant out these affirmations every day, you can include this into your everyday existing practice or start with this practice where you say, I am enough, I matter, I'm worthy, and I'm good, and I am whole and complete. What happened? This last thing is not coming through, but anyway, there we go. Yeah, these 5 affirmations every single day. You will notice that the way you relate to yourself and the way you relate to others and the world very subtly but very surely changes. It changes towards a more wholesome and more powerful way of engaging. So I would highly recommend this practice. This would be my parting message. And I must say, it was just such a pleasure to be here to interact with all of you here at Indica, Anuji, as well as all the beautiful, deep questions that the audience also came up with. It sets me thinking, and I'm ever grateful for these kinds of opportunities. Thank you so much. Thank you, and God bless.
Thank you very much. Namaste and see you again.
See you. Bye bye.